Welcome to Kentucky Gunslingers. And what we have here today is the Henry Big Boy 357 Magnum, which as you can see is a lever action weapon that harkens back to the late 19th century. What you would see is a rifle that had won the West, so to speak. And in this bench review, we'll talk over all its strengths, uses, and a couple of the opportunities, just so anyone who's interested in something like this knows what they're getting into. First, let's start at the top with some of the things that make it awesome. Number one is definitely style. This is not an identical replica of a repeater that you would have found in the late 1800s, but it does play off of that design. It does have a brass receiver, which uses more of a brass alloy to kind of keep the weight down a little bit, but it's very strong. Beautiful finish, as you can tell. Very shiny. It looks great, and it has a brass band on the barrel as well. Really a nice piece as far as how it looks. Also, nice stock. Stock's great. Front handguard's great. All American made. Really beautiful, solid weapon. 20-inch octagon barrel, which harkens back to some of that older design. And now this is a heavy barrel weapon too. It's shooting a pistol caliber, 20-inch octagon barrel. There's not a lot of recoil. A couple other strengths to it besides its magnificent looks and its style is it's 357 Magnum, so it is also chambered where you can shoot 38 specials through it. Magnum's obviously going to give you more velocity, a bit more distance to work off of as well. But if you're plinking and you want a less expensive round to shoot, you can shoot 38 specials as well. Aside from that, I did mention the heaviness of the barrel. Recoil's basically non-existent. So when you pull the trigger, you're right back on target. You're back at zero very quickly, even using the hotter 357 rounds. The barrel's heavy, stock's not as heavy, but the balance point is still right around here. So it's not a very off-balance weapon either. Henry's done a great job of keeping it where it's balanced, and it's an easy to shoot. You pull it to the shoulder. Sight-wise, has a front post sight here with the little brass bead, and buckhorn rear sight, which is adjustable for windage as well. This is new out of box, so I actually haven't shot this yet because I still got it, or I just got it. But I have shot the exact example in the past. They're very accurate. So some of the uses. So one appealing piece is if you do have a 357 Magnum revolver, you can carry the revolver and this rifle at the same time with interchangeable ammunition. So it shoots a 357 cartridge, or if you're carrying a 38, it'll shoot the 38 cartridge as well. So it's nice having a couple of different firearms for different uses that will shoot the same caliber round, which is great. You could obviously use this for hunting. Now with its flashy design and shininess, it might not be the greatest hunting weapon on earth, but if you're hunting in a blind or something of that nature, it's definitely more than serviceable with the 357 Magnum round, where you have the velocity. And where I'm at in Kentucky, most of your deer hunting shots are going to be within 100 yards anyway. This is more than serviceable for that. Also, it would make a great bug out gun, mainly because of the interchangeability of the ammunition, but also because of the reliability of the firearm itself. Going back to strengths, one thing I failed to mention earlier, the trigger on this is super brisk. The safety mechanism does operate off of a transfer bar, so you do have to pull the hammer, have the hammer all the way back for the transfer bar to move into position to hit the firing pin. So the hammer has to be all the way back and then squeeze the trigger to shoot it. Trigger breaks at about 3.5 pounds, so it's really crisp, and you're not going to have a lot of drag or creep or anything of that nature. So overall, really crisp trigger, really effective transfer bar safety. So a couple of the cons that I would point out, some of the opportunities. Number one, there's nothing drilled on this for sling. There's no sling post on front, and there's no sling post in the back. So you have two options. You either drill into the rifle, which I personally am not going to do, and I just wouldn't modify it that way. Or two, you can get slings that are leather that wrap around the stock, wrap around the forward part of the barrel. Unfortunately, they can be pretty pricey for a sling. I've seen them upwards of $300 and $400, where they're really nice, soft leather. They look real great, but you are spending $400-ish on a sling. Now, this rifle should retail somewhere between $700 and $850. Nowadays, you're going to see them out there with the pandemic. You're going to see them out there maybe even north of 1,000, where Henry even upped their MSRP for 1,000. But still, if you call it 1,000, you're still spending $400 on a sling for a $1,000 rifle. The other opportunity I would say for it is empty. It weighs about 8.5 pounds, which is a pretty heavy carry. Most rifles are not going to weigh up to that much unless they're constructed like this, where you have the heavier barrel, brass receiver, all wood construction on the furniture. It does feed on a tube magazine, and it holds 10 rounds, which you typically see tube magazines on smaller calibers like 22s. This is tube magazine on a 357 Magnum, so you get 10 rounds in there. And it's going to add to the weight dramatically. You're going to be over 9 pounds at that point. So loaded, it's a pretty heavy weapon. So those are a couple things I would consider if you're looking at this for bug out usage, home defense usage, which is an option, or hunting. It is a heavier gun. So going back to some of the strengths again, I would say overall, these are really clean shooters. They're a lot of fun to shoot. The lever action, it obviously harkens back to the days of old, and there's a romance to that. There's also a reliability, and the pistol caliber rounds, these pistol caliber rifles, also can be really efficient to shoot as well. And 357 is a great rifle or a great round, nothing to sniff at. Henry makes these in 44 Magnum, 357 Magnum, 45 Colts, 41 Magnum, variety of calibers you can get them in. I choose 357 because I have some redundancy there in my collection. But overall, any of those calibers are great for all the usage we just talked about. I'd say if you are considering looking at one of these, the considerations I would have is I would actually put some thought toward the sling, and also just some thought toward the fact that it is a heavier piece, and keep that in mind for your usage. So with that, feel free to subscribe to the channel and leave any questions in the comments.